All right, Mark, we're back on for part two of identity and access management projects. All right, sorry for the interruption. Go
I don't
ahead.
know. Yeah, as we were talking about some of the difficulties, I'll get into some of the considerations now for as you start taking on these projects. Some of the identity considerations that you need to look at. What are your policies concerning identity and the correlation of IDs to individuals, applications, and system resources? And that's a big part of the heavy lifting. Do you have a policy that requires a unique qualifier or a unique ID for all your systems? Some manufacturing companies use shared IDs on plant floors because they have a lot of shift workers, a lot of temporary workers, and if you're a financial client, you probably have a much more stricter policy around how you provision IDs, and you want that ability to audit, that one person at that one station at a time. So those are a couple of things to consider. How do you cope with privileged accounts? Root access, administrator access. You have to account for that because you're going to change how those things log in, and this is especially true if you're running databases that run as privileged or other system software or application software. How do you cope with the record of authority for all the elements of your identities? So does the HR system have, the name and the telephone number? Does, the domain have, or as you replace that with the IDM tool, will that be the master record for your user IDs? What inventory your tools? What tools and processes do you currently have to use and propagate IDs? You'd be surprised because, it's not just creating the Windows Active Directory name or, some of the system names. You've got VPN, you've got routers, you've got web proxies. So you'd often be surprised. It's like, well, maybe I only have, half a dozen systems, and then you go out and you find out that it's more like, a couple of orders of magnitude greater. You could have up to 20 different things that generate stuff, depending on your environment. So what are the tools and processes that currently govern your system and asset naming, and how do you propagate that and correlate that between your systems? As you look at the access management piece of it, how many different modes and protocols do your users currently have to navigate through? I mean, how many passwords do we all typically have to have? If you've got Windows Active Directory, some of your legacy systems, mainframe, mid-range, if you have home-built applications, intranet, or SAP or other, a lot of proxies that will require separate ID, VPN remote access. Are you trying to do two-factor? Do you have two-factor in parts of your organization, and do you need to bring that back in and make it an enterprise available service? What are your password policies, and how do those password policies not only propagate across the system, are they coherent across all your systems? For a long time, Windows passwords and Unix passwords, very different capabilities, so it was very tough to bring everything up to a level playing field, especially if you had high security requirements. And how does system and app, again, I'm going to keep harping on this, because how your system and application entities access the systems is critical. You want to bring that into your IDM system so you can help audit it. And if you have your system admins going out and, unfortunately, a lot of poorly designed applications lets you set that up once, and then managing that, we make our users change our passwords every 60 days, but nobody ever goes back in and changes the application password. So if you have an SQL database running somewhere and it's running as a privileged user, it's been running with the same password forever. If somebody figures that out, they're sitting at your table.
Is that one of the variations that we read of in Verizon in its data breach report 2010? They came up with the various SQL attacks that are out there. Is that one of them?
Yes, that's a very popular one because there are certain database products that, if you can send it, especially through SQL injection, if you can send it, malformed packet, or actually you can get certain SQL, if they don't, especially if they don't change the default password, you can actually get it to spawn a process. You open a command window on the box, and it'll actually generate an administrative equivalent user, and now the hacker has that user because he just created it through SQL, because he made an SQL call that went out to the system, told the system, hey, I need to go make a user and make it an administrator. And now if he's at least an administrator on the box, and if the administrator on the box happens to be a domain administrator, you can see how that privilege escalation can quickly grant a bad actor a lot of access very quickly.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's just one of the ways too.
Yes, I'm always, I read some of the hack, bulletins, and I'm continuously amazed at how much free time some of these guys have to do things that would just never occur to a normal human being. If we just send, ones at this particular command level for 35 times and then put in the word, Deep Purple, it'll do this. And I don't know how they think of that, but
they do.
They do. And keeps us very gainfully employed, I guess. So again, understanding how your systems and applications access the system, and then putting in provisions by which you can change those at the same frequency your users is very important, and it raises the level of security of your systems greatly. And I mean that borders on system hardening and processes around that, but IAM helps you. So again, IAM's not just a security tool. It's requirements. Largest success factor for IAM is understand your processes, have them documented, and fix them, because you will find things that are broken with your processes, and if you have a broken process, you'll just propagate brokenness significantly quicker and greater than you currently are. It's not just a technology project. It's heavily dependent on processes and culture, and this is the other part of IAM that's very important. As you push and you delegate the ability to control access to the actual business owners, they have to have a culture of security awareness, especially around information handling and classification. If your users don't have a good handle on how to handle and classify your data, none of this is going to work. So, make sure the users understand the different systems, make sure they understand the different classifications, and make sure you integrate IAM into your whole life cycle, because you're, unfortunately, like all technology, you're going to be replacing these tools like you replace, your Windows servers or any other piece of technology. So make sure that your process to handle that life cycle, is embedded into your thoughts with IAM. So Rome wasn't built in a day. Look at doing these in phases, and make sure you have a long-term strategy. So that's pretty much IAM in a nutshell.
All right, Mark, I got to let you go.